At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Hey folks, Dr. Doug here with Dr. Doug and Friends Radio. I am really pleased to have a friend of mine back on the show for what, the third time, Bracha?
That's right.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Who's counting? Who's counting?
I know, but it's so great to have you back on the show. And I think particularly right now with what's going on with the pandemic, and we've talked about that before, but I think one of the focuses that I've really kind of taken heart to is really what's happening with our children and what's going on with them and how are they experiencing this pandemic. And in many respects, how are we as parents helping our children in a more positive way? And I know that that's something that you've been really focused on. And just for the audience, hey, you're a Harvard, educated individual. You've written what, over 39 children's books?
Yeah, a new book just came out this week. So yes, it's 39 children's books and one book for adults. So that makes 40 books. Yay!
Oh, good for you. That's great. Where did this focus on children come about for you? I'm curious.
Okay, but I just want to get back to what you just said about the pandemic, because I just got motivated to say this. I feel that the pandemic has pushed all of us forward spiritually in a gigantic push forward that we could have never had happen otherwise. And it was done collectively to all of us at once. The way that it changed us all is that we don't take things for granted anymore. And this applies to children and adults. Everything that we took for granted before the pandemic, we can't anymore. We're not able to. We don't take our health for granted. We don't take life for granted. We don't take hugs for granted. We don't take being with people. It's all changed. We're all changed people. And this is something that is going to affect the young children today that have grown up in this pandemic. This is their entrance to the world, the youngest children. These will be evolved individuals. They have the potential to be very spiritually evolved because the most important quality is gratitude. And that's what they will be able to have with clarity more than anybody else. Because if it's in their consciousness of memory, they will remember that they began in this world with so many things that they didn't take for granted right off from the start.
Well, and I think you bring up an interesting point about gratitude, because as you say, this has been a spiritual awakening for some. I think for some, it's been a tough spiritual awakening. And when we talk about that, it's like for many families, many individuals, all of a sudden being in a situation where they're not able to get out with their friends, they're not able to get out and do all of these types of things. And, the divorce rate's up, skyrocketing. And what's going on? And I think that the point is that, as all of a sudden we're into that situation where we're just kind of isolated with each other and we're not being able to get out and go to work and do all of these types of things, which kind of helped to soften some of that. Now, all of a sudden, we're really looking at these relationships and going, wow, is this a good relationship? And I think for many, it's like, how do I make this even a better relationship? Because I haven't been focusing on it. And I think for our kids particularly, how do they come out of this with a sense of gratitude? And that's what really hit me when you said gratitude, because I think that becomes the key. How can we look at this environment? And all of us have gone through in one way or the other some tough times, but how can we be grateful and experience a sense of gratitude and look for those blessings that have come out of this?
Exactly. Spiritual awakenings are not always comfortable. We know that when we are awakened, it's, it's challenging to grow. Where we are is comfortable. Nobody finds it comfortable to grow. It's just not. But it is ultimately good for us. That's the thing. I mean, during this year, I lost two really good friends. You know, that's not comfortable.
No.
It's but like I just feel it was necessary. We all had tremendous losses, but we all gained from it tremendously spiritually. We're just not people that will say of course anymore. Instead, of course, we now look to source. In other words, all these gifts in our life, they just can't be taken for granted. We saw that. That's how this unfolded in front of all of us. And all of us together. In fact, it made us all connected because we all shared this experience. And children, one of the main problems with children today, and as you brought up marriages as well, is taking people for granted. And I think I'm going back to this again, but in the pleasure ladder we learn about, the 5 levels all have to do with gratitude. To go from one level to the next of joy and to experience pleasure in our life, we need gratitude. That is what gets us to experience pleasure, and it helps us go from one rung to the next. Like the lowest level, all the physical pleasures, we experience gratitude. That's when we can really enjoy them. The next level is love. It's focusing on the virtues of another, having gratitude for another individual. That's how we bring love into our life. And then meaning, feeling good about the world, doing something meaningful to give back to the world. And creativity is putting us a part of ourselves in the world, which is an even more lasting pleasure. Transcendence is seeing how we're all connected and that there's a source to all the goodness in our lives. So I try to, this is what I've learned and what I'm sharing for adults, but this is also what I'm sharing for children in the children's books. And I think, I'll hold up a book here. Like, hey, Hashem's Candy Store is about appreciating the fruits and vegetables that we have. This is basic stuff, and it's what people have learned during the pandemic as well, about the importance of eating healthy foods. So important for keeping our health up and our immunization levels up. So, we in the book I teach about gratitude for an orange, where the peel, it keeps all the juiciness in for months. We don't have to, it's individually packaged, amazing. It has a wonderful aroma, and it becomes bright and beautiful when it's ripest. That's how we know when to pick it from the tree. It's ready for us. And it tastes, not only is it delicious, but it's nutritious, as opposed to like the processed food, which is delicious, like it may be orange flavored, but it's not nutritious for us as well. So everything that was divinely created, it's nutritious for us as well as delicious.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. One of the things that I've been talking to people about, and I'm noticing a higher elevation of awareness of nature and all of those types of things. I am curious, how did you get so involved in focusing on kids?
Oh, well, I try to write the books I wished I had as a child. I wasn't brought up in a spiritual way, and that's what I was searching for and craving for. It was all that was missing in my life, because I had a really sweet life, but I didn't understand what the meaning of it all was. Or is there a source? Where is this all coming from? Is there an ultimate goodness? I didn't understand that we ourselves were spiritual beings and that there was a spiritual purpose to life. These were things I didn't know. So these are the books that I'm writing for children on really deep concepts told in a very simple, concrete way and a joyful way so that children can absorb them. And there's a saying in the Talmud, if a person learns when he's a child, what is it like? It's like ink written on fresh paper. And ink that's written on fresh paper, it sinks in and it makes an impression. So the earlier that we can teach children that they're spiritual beings in a spiritual world, here to uplift our world and be nourished by it, then the better, the more joyful their lives can be. It's basically engraving on souls.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute, because as you said, you grew up in an environment where that was not being taught. And yet I'm sure, as you mentioned, that you had wonderful parents and you lived up in you grew up in a wonderful environment. How do we engender a sense within our parents to really start teaching those values for our children at an early age? And if we have not actually been able to do that and they're a little bit older now, how do we still engender within them at least a desire to understand and learn those values?
I'm not sure how to engender that desire. Um, I think that certain souls are more exposed than others. Certain souls feel that desire more than others do. For instance, my own sister, she would always say to me, why do you care what the purpose of life is? Who cares? And people can go through life like that. It amazes me. It's a very different type of life, but it's possible. I have a feeling that many people that have addictions are people that have more exposed souls. They're very sensitive people. They're people that are looking for greater pleasure in life. I've said this before, but why do people overeat? Because they want the pleasure to keep lasting. Instead, we can learn about how to bring more lasting pleasure into our lives. That's the way to overcome habits, by bringing in, and I have a book for children, how to break bad habits. It's teaching these concepts to children. Bring more joy into your life. That's the best way to break a bad habit. You can't, doing it through restriction, it doesn't last long. There's the newest books about breaking bad habits. They talk about 3 steps: easy, enjoyable, repeat. It's really one step: enjoy. We have to nourish our hungry souls in order to break bad habits by bringing in other things that we enjoy. So how do we encourage parents to teach their children more spirituality? One of the main ways, I think, is by being an example of expressing gratitude in life, showing that you don't take things for granted. Because if you express gratitude, you model that for your children, and you have a more joyful life. And you might not label it as being more spiritual, but having gratitude shows that it's coming from someplace. All the gifts in our life, they're coming from a source. Because if we're grateful, it means it isn't just there for the taking. It's being given to us.
Well, and I really like that point. I think you make a great point. Sometimes when we hear the word spirituality, for many people, that really pushes them away because, it's just not what they're looking for. But I think what you're talking about is really just a sense of gratitude. I mean, you go out into nature, as you know, I love photography, and, to be able to go out and to look at nature and be able to capture some of those beautiful moments, whether it's animals or whether it's actually, landscapes or whatever that happens to be. And that sense of gratitude is so overpowering. And I think for all of us, that if we really look at our lives, for the most part, we can look at things and be grateful And in fact, if we're not finding things to be grateful for, that's actually a sad statement about our lives. And I think sometimes it's just a matter of changing our mindset a little bit and going, okay, so you know what, this is a lousy situation, but what can I be grateful for? And I think you're right. As we as adults, as parents, can start to engender that within ourselves, we will start to then pass that on to not only our children, but to others with whom we associate.
Exactly. This sounds funny, but there was a very basic thing that I would do with my children, and now my children all do this with, not all, but most of them do this with their children. Whenever I would give any of my children something, it was, let's say, a cup of water, I'd hand it to them and I wouldn't let go until they said thank you. I mean, and I wouldn't do it in a mean way. I would just hand it and they're holding it and we're both holding it, and I wouldn't have to say anything, and eventually they'd say thank you, and then I release it. It's to show them that the most basic things, someone hands you a piece of paper, you don't let I don't let go until they say thank you, and I have a smile on my face and I'm waiting for what they say. And this is how all six of my children are such grateful people. It like went so deep into them that we need to be grateful for everything in life, and that's how they could be joyful people. It's a very subtle technique, but it's really helpful for anybody that wants to adopt that. You'll see that it just helps people to, it's actually, we need to exercise gratitude muscles, because the more we exercise them, the stronger they become, and they become more habitual. Yeah.
Well, and you talk about different types of skills. Obviously, gratitude is a skill. It's a habit, it's a skill that we learn. What are some of the other skills that, as you contemplate children and write your books, and even now the one with the adults, what are some of those other skills that you think are so essential in our lives to really create that life of joy and happiness?
Yes, I do think gratitude covers like everything in a way, but I'll explain. Here's another one. Okay, let's appreciate everyone. It teaches children skills about how to interact with children that have disabilities. Now, it's a sensitivity. That's a skill that we're training here, because if you don't train children in this, they actually don't know basic things. Like, let's say when you meet someone in a wheelchair, sit down next to them so you're on the same level. And let's say you meet someone who's blind. When you walk up to them, introduce yourself. And then when you're leaving, make sure you say, I'm going away now. Like, these are basic things that are very helpful, because many children, when they meet someone who has a disability, I say in the book, and I learned this, it's a 5-letter word. And what most people do is stare, but it also begins with an S. And what the children really want is a smile. A smile changes everything, especially for children with disabilities, to get a smile and to include children with disabilities whenever possible. Like, there's many invisible disabilities. So let's say a child's always sitting on the sideline when everybody's playing. Invite them to come and play, and they may not be interested. They might have a social disability that's invisible, but they'll still appreciate being asked. And children with disabilities are the loneliest children. They don't get invited to play dates or to parties as much as other children. So, like another example with children that are deaf, you speak very slowly so they could read your lips, but you also can write a note to them so they'll be able to communicate with you that way. These are just basic things that nobody, if no one tells you, you'll just feel like staring because you don't know enough. When you learn different skills about relating to other children that have disabilities, you are more comfortable into relating, and it just fills you with more sensitivity. So again, it does have to do with gratitude and appreciation. um, you can appreciate other people more that have disabilities when you learn more about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think you have a good point that can be generalized. It's not just with children. I mean, the bottom line is so often we get so busy in our lives and we move so fast. And I'm one of them. I walk fast, I move fast, I do all of those types of things. And the reality is that sometimes as we're interacting with people, I think about Facebook. I mean, bottom line is, I have how many friends, you have how many friends. Well, how many of them are really friends? The whole word has changed a bit. And as we get out and as we start to mingle again, which hopefully most of us can start to do, and as we interact with people, I think you've hit the key there is, who are they and what can we do to really connect with them and understand them? And can we in some way lift their lives? Because quite frankly, all of us need that lift once in a while.
Exactly. And also, like, another point in the book is what you just said. Don't focus on the disability. Focus on their strengths. Everybody has something to give in this world. And it talks about a boy who can't walk, but he knows how to do tricks with his yo-yo. I mean, there's always ways that you can appreciate someone, and that again has to do with love. Focus on what you can appreciate about everybody. Even, let's say it's someone that can't move their arms or legs. I mean, they are bringing out the best in you. They're there to help you become a better person too. So in that way, you can appreciate them for that. There's always something that you can appreciate about somebody. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think, and I want you've told this story before, but obviously you tell us that you grew up in an environment, wonderful parents, but really not much of a sense of spiritual awareness relative to, for you, what that happens to mean. And I think that you actually had a very specific series of events in your life that brought that about for you. And as I recall, there was a very specific individual that did that for you. Is that correct?
Well, there was a rabbi who passed away in Israel that I met that gave me a whole new perspective about. I mean, it's when I started to learn in depth the wisdom that I didn't know. I wasn't brought up with. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess the point of that is, at least the point I'm trying to make here, is that there are people that really truly affect our lives. In your case, it was that rabbi in Israel that really made a huge difference for you and changed the direction of your life. And I'm not sure, how much he really thought about the fact that, oh, I'm changing her life and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. He just was who he was. And because of that connection with you, it changed your life. And how often do we really take the time to realize that, what, even in the most minute ways, we could, in fact, if we're willing to interact and connect with others, be that particular situation that can change their lives.
Beautiful. So true. I love it. Okay. You were bringing up another book. I'm bringing up this one now.
Okay.
I Want to Be Famous is about a boy. He thinks it's so great to be famous. So he actually becomes famous overnight. Someone takes a YouTube video of him doing something ridiculous. He becomes famous. And just as quickly, his fame goes away when someone else could do it better. Then he realizes inside of him, there's a spotlight that can never go out. If you get that shining from within you, that's when you can really make a difference in the world. That's what it's about. It's not about getting spotlights from outside to shine on you. You can make a difference affecting one person. Oh my gosh, there's this great quote I just saw recently from Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon.
Mhm.
He says, everything I have ever done has started small. I love that. Everything I have ever done has started small. This is the CEO of Amazon talking. So it's just each small thing, letting our souls shine. We need nourishment to get our own souls shining so we can shine it and light up other people's lives, like you were saying.
Well, and that's really become a really strong point in my life. And in fact, I'm thinking about writing about it to a great extent, is the fact that it isn't about what we do. It isn't about what we have. It's about who we are. And as we start to focus on that, and as we start to realize that we can literally become who we really are internally, but for some reason, many times we've had, barriers and imprints placed upon us that prevent us from understanding that. But the minute that we truly understand the goodness that we all are, and the goodness that resides within each one of us, and the power, as you mentioned, of that shining forth, all of a sudden, there's no question about what we do or what's important to us to have, because who we are creates that what we do. And when that happens in a good way, all of a sudden we really are out there. How do we live the lives of others? And we're out touching lives and doing good things.
Exactly, exactly. Because I, I have an expression where we're not here to see through each other. We're here to see each other through. That's what we're all here for. We're really all connected. What's so funny is it's like one person is like one finger. It's like, would you want to harm this finger? We're all like one soul, one body. We're really, when you take away the separations, when the veil is lifted and you could see with clarity, we are all connected, just like our fingers are connected to our hand. We all really need each other in life to help each other become all that we can be.
Okay.
Right.
And you know what? We've done this before, but I think what's really amazing is as I've read children's books as an adult, sometimes I'm even more deeply touched and changed with children's books. How do people find your books?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can meet them all at once on my Amazon author page. There's now over 40 books there, and you can see them all. If people don't have money to buy books, you can order them through your public library. The public libraries will get the books and get them for you too. So that's another way that the messages can get out into the world, right? And continue to help people and uplift them to recognize that they're shining souls, no matter what garbage has been put on top, that you can shine. Yes.
And what is your message? I mean, when you think about it, with everything you've done, with all of the books that you're writing, with your whole focus that you've shared today, what is your message to those that are listening today? What if you could bring that into a succinct type of thought?
I My deepest message is that we all came from a world of souls and we're going to go back to a world of souls. We are spiritual beings, essentially. That's our core. But we're clothed in bodies to interact in this physical world for a temporary period of time that we're here, to uplift the world and also to be uplifted by our interactions. We just have a little period of time there, and so let's use that time as valuably as possible, experiencing the gratitude that we were meant to experience here, because the reason why we were created was for us to have pleasure here. And the way to have pleasure here is to be grateful for all that we have. The expression in the Talmud is, who is rich? Those who are happy with what they have.
And what a wonderful message, Bracha. It's been wonderful to have you back on the show again.
Thank you so much.
I love you. You are just such an incredible individual. And it's always such a pleasure to be able to chat with you and to listen to the wonderful messages that you have. And I appreciate it.
Thank you so deeply. Thank you.
And folks, hey, hope you enjoyed this. I'm sure you did. And please join us again. We look forward to being able to talk about ways in which we can all really make a difference in other people's lives. And again, this is Bracha Goetz. Thank you once again for being on the show. Bye now.